Today's video is bound to be a little bit rough and may leave you pulling your wires out. Hey everybody, Sam here and welcome back to Samcraft. Welcome to the next video of me building my new workshop, my 20 by 32 stick frame workshop. Today's video is all about rough electrical in the workshop. From laying out all of my circuits, what I need, wiring up the ceiling for my light drops, heater drops, outlets in the ceiling drops, as well as installing boxes throughout the wall, spacing my outlets, and building my circuits to be correct for what I anticipate to use the space for. The first thing for me to do was to get my sub panel ready. I needed to insulate the wall, put a wall covering on it, and then mount my sub panel box to the wall, attaching it into the wall studs. I also decided to mount this externally to my walls. I like this kind of application for a workshop setup. It allows much easier add-ons, configurations, changing things around, plus make sure my wall behind my panel is fully insulated. Normally you'll see these flush mount and set into your wall inside of a home, but usually that's also on an interior wall where you are not trying to insulate and protect yourself from the elements. I did a little bit of preparation and planning work a couple of days ago. I spent some time in the space, looked around, got an idea of where I wanted all of my outlets and light switches to be, and then I put some black tape on the wall studs where they're going to go. As far as lighting, I'm going to run 4 light circuits, and there will be 4 light switches in this workshop to control them. Basically, I'm going to have 4 strings of lights running the full length of the workshop, and I will have 2 lights here controlled by the 2 light switches at this door, and then the 2 runs of lights over there controlled by a 2 light switch over there at the tunnel connection that will eventually connect this building to my old workshop. So the way that I'm pulling these wire runs is I'm starting with my reel back there at the sub panel, taking the wire and I'm dragging it all the way across the room, letting it unspool from the little homemade wire spooler unreeler thing that I built, get it all the way to the wall, then I take it back, go up, in, above, inside the trusses, and then work my way all the way down through to the end and start stapling it from there. When doing these long home runs, which is basically this wire running from the panel to the end, I always go to the end of it, staple it in place, and then I work myself back, getting my service loops at everywhere that I'm going to have a light. The service loops probably look large, but that's because they are not being stapled exactly where the lights are going to go. The lights will be centered between the ceiling truss, so I want to make sure I have enough wire to reach my J-box or junction box, and then for the lights to then get it installed later. I'm being very careful to staple the wires every 2 feet or less. By code, you have to have your Romex stapled every 4 feet, but I want to make sure everything is up there nice and tight, has no loops, no snags, and is just otherwise not in the way. The expense used by more staples is nominal compared to a clean looking job, something that is up there secure, where it's supposed to be, and just is worth it to me. Maybe I'm being extra picky, but it's what I like to do because I really want it to look nice and never have to worry about it ever again. Handful of days later, and all of my rough electrical work is done. So let me go over what I have installed here as far as circuits and things like that. Just briefly give you an electrical idea for the shop. This back wall here is planned to be where my machines are, my large machines. So there are 7 outlets on this wall split between 3 20 amp circuits. This back wall has 4 outlets split between 2 20 amp circuits. The front wall has 7 outlets split between 2 20 amp circuits. My thought with this one, since I did 2 here but 3 there, is I probably will not have large machines right here in front of my windows. So I'm definitely going to be fine with a usable 40 amps worth of power. And then last but not least, on this wall here, the short wall, there are 2 outlets on 120 amp circuit. So all of this translates into having an outlet along the complete perimeter of my workshop, spaced at about every 4 feet. This is going to work great for me. I don't really see having more power demands than what I've wired myself up here, and I've tried to give myself room to grow. I mean, just looking around at the actual outlets that I have, the numbers I can use, but also the circuit power ratings, I really don't know that I'll outgrow this. If I do, the benefit of a raised floor workshop means I can easily run some conduit from my load panel center or breaker box down through the floor, go under the workshop wherever I need to, come up from the floor and do an outlet there. That's no problem. And it's pretty easy to do with a raised floor shop. As far as what is going on or what I've done with my ceiling, it's probably going to be easiest to overlay a diagram and kind of do a show and tell. So first things first, my ceiling lights. And yes, there are a lot of them. I have wired up for 32 recessed LED ceiling lights, and they're all put on 115 amp circuit, which is the benefit of LED lights because they use about 15 watts a piece, and considering that the maximum load for 15 amp is about 1500 watts, I'm definitely not going to overload this circuit with all of these lights, yet still get a ton of illumination in my workshop, which is exactly what I want. You'll also notice there are 4 squares in this diagram, and those represent 4 infrared ceiling heaters that I am anticipating that I will be getting. I went ahead and ran dedicated circuits, 1 for each heater. So that was a total of 4 15 amp circuits up there that will just supply heat needs for the shop. And then the last thing I did was also add in 3 receptacles or outlets in the center, dead center of the shop, running across the 32-foot span. I just put 3 of them up there, spaced them evenly, and those are there in the event I want to add an air purifier or air filter for the shop, maybe a suspended drop cord on a reel above a workbench or something in the middle of the shop, or just have other needs for electricity high up from the ceiling. I don't know that I'll use them yet, but this was absolutely the time to put it in the event I ever do need it, because once this thing is covered up and closed up, it becomes a lot harder to install anything in the ceiling. Alright, so I've got my wires split for right now, just for illustrative purposes. First and foremost, no, I've not pulled my wires into my sub panel just yet, but it is on my list to do very, very soon. I split these because these white wires represent the 4 circuits for my ceiling heaters. I'm not ready to pull them into the panel yet because I believe what I'm going to be doing is wiring in direct thermostats to control those heaters, but I need to get them in, check them out, and make sure that it's appropriate first. What I'm holding in my hand is all of my receptacles, my ceiling lights, and all my circuits minus the electric heaters. I have 10 circuits, which is a perfectly magical number. Why? Because I plan to run this workshop off-grid as much as possible, and transfer switches come in a maximum of 10 circuits. So this will be perfect to integrate a transfer switch whenever I get one in the future. For the time being though, I want to go ahead and pull these into the sub panel and get them attached. That way, when the day comes I get a transfer switch, you wire everything up in your panel anyway and use junction wires there. So pulling this into my box is not going to hurt anything. So let's go ahead and get that done to take one more step towards finishing the rough electrical project. there we have it. All the wires are pulled into my breaker box or sub panel. I have my cable clamp connectors up here tightened down, and this is it for rough electrical. I have my light switches, my ceiling wires, my heaters, my outlets in the ceiling, the outlets throughout the walls, my outdoor outlets, outdoor light here at the door, and my sub panel completely done. All the rough electrical's done, and it feels great. If you guys got any questions or comments on this or anything else you've seen, definitely leave me a comment down below. Also remember, there is a full playlist down below if you have just plopped and dropped on this one. If you want to see this entire workshop being built from the ground up, that playlist has it all. Otherwise, take care, and I'll see you guys next time in the workshop.